when he shot that tom, it was pretty early in the morning, and I'm like, should we finish the hike or go to breakfast? And we kind of both knew, being hunting partners, that you're going to keep going. You kind of have to, when you hunt with someone long enough, you don't have to feel that out. You just kind of know.
I'm telling you, anytime you can share adversity, that's where friendships are forged. When you can share and overcome adversity together. And so many times when we go out hunting, you never know what you're getting into. This is the Houndsman XP podcast.
Good dog, get that bear. Get that bear
in here. The original podcast for the complete houndsman.
Look at your coat, go, Justin! We're gonna get him!
The podcast that represents our lifestyle of extreme performance.
Get up there! Get him! Get him! Yeah, good boy! Ranger!
Uniting houndsmen across the globe, from east to west, north to south.
If you're going to catch a cat or a lion, you have to have teamwork.
We take you to the wildest places on earth.
Yeah, so how many days a week do you spend out there?
As much as I can, to be honest with you. Anytime that I get, I'm out there.
Join us for every heart-pounding adventure on Houndsman XP.
I'll tell you like I tell everyone else, I'm going to hunt whether you're here or not, so you might as well be here.
Good Monday morning, everybody. I hope you guys are all enjoying a great season, getting plenty of time in the field with your hounds and catching critters out there. We've been leaning in heavy on the Colorado 91. Hopefully this is the only time I'll mention that during this entire podcast. I need a break. I know you need a break. I've been hammering you. I've been hammering on the whole issue. So we're going to talk dogs. We're going to talk about mountain lion hunting. We're going to talk to Nick Muckerman. Nick is such an interesting guy. He's written articles for different outdoor publications. He's a public educator, a school principal. He's a hardcore lion hunter. The way he hunts is very challenging, and he's going to lay that all out for us. He does it a little different than what a lot of us do, but he also does things a lot like we do it as well. He's also a bird dog trainer, and we're going to dive in a little bit and talk about the crossovers between training Brittany's dog behavior, just some general stuff. I'm kind of stepping on Heath's toes here a little bit, but Heath's been after these legislative alerts over there in Virginia, which is kind of my bailiwick. But hey, it's all good, right? That's what it takes to build a solid team. And since I'm talking about team, I want to give you guys an update. You're on our team. I want you to stay on our team. After March 1st, you've just got a few days left. After March 1st, then all of the Houndsman XP lineup is moving to the Xtreme Performance Outdoor Network. That is a network that we, Team Houndsman XP, has created exclusively for our shows and our listeners. It's going to be a little bit different. There's a couple different ways that you can continue to follow us and subscribe. But the easiest way is just to go to your podcast app, whether it's Spotify or Apple or wherever you're getting your podcast, and just do a search. It's just like a Google search. There's a search bar at the top in Apple Podcast and on Spotify, and just type in Xtreme Performance Outdoor Network. It's spelled with an X. It doesn't start with an E. It starts with an X, just like Houndsman XP. When you do that, you're going to get a logo that's got the XP from our current logo right in the center. There's going to be some topo lines. It's going to be black and red. It's going to be the same color scheme as we've always used for Houndsman XP, but it's going to be the Xtreme Performance Outdoor Network. Once you do that search, you can select that feed and follow it, subscribe it, whatever you got to do there, either in Spotify or wherever you're listening, and then it will auto-populate every show that you already listened to. This podcast, the Houndsman XP flagship podcast, Heath's show, The Journey is going to be there, all mixed up, the Dogmen, and we're going to drop more stuff on that feed. There's more new shows that are coming. Another thing that you'll notice when you search for Xtreme Performance Outdoor Network, then the individual shows will start populating in there as well. So you can select The Journey and just subscribe to it and just listen to Heath if that's what you want to do. If you want to listen to a couple shows and there's another show that you don't listen to that often, then do that. It's all good. It's total freedom for you to listen to whatever you want to listen to. But the big thing is the deadline of March 1st. After the end of February, you're no longer going to be able to hear this show or any of the other Houndsman XP shows the way you're listening to them right now if you haven't done this new search. So, man, go over there and check it out. Shane and the whole team has been working diligently to make this switch. I think it's going to be improved, and it's going to be focused on who we are and what we do. All right, let's get down to it. This is Nick Muckerman. It's a box shaker. It's time to dump the box. The Houndsman XP podcast is fueled by Joy Dog Food. Joy Dog Food has a rich tradition of supporting the Houndsman of America. Founded in 1945, Joy is proud of its history and the relationship it has built with the American Houndsman. And in 76 years, there's never been a recall. Made with 100% American-made high-quality ingredients, Joy Dog Food has one of the highest calorie-dense formulas on the market. For 76 years, this made-in-America product has kept hunting dogs in the field day after day, season after season. And when we say made in America, Joy has a long track record of fighting for American freedoms by being on the front lines against the animal rights movement and their extremist tactics. Joy will fuel your hounds and fight for your freedoms. Fueled by Joy. You find a lot of interesting things when you start looking around. And I was on Field Ethos website, just kind of checking out what Donald Trump Jr. has going on there with Field Ethos, and came across, if you haven't checked it out, go to fieldethos.com. There's all kinds of good stuff on there about hunting, and it's a really good voice for the modern hunter. And several articles on there. But as I was scrolling through the articles, I came across an article about hounds and lion hunting with hounds. And of course, I had to open that up. And as I read through it, I found a fascinating article, well-written article. And that's how I get this guy on the podcast, Nick Muckerman from Ingham, Idaho. Welcome aboard, Nick.
Hey, thanks. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Man, it's a small world because Ingham, Idaho is also the home of Dogs Are Treed. My good friends Kevin and Nancy Hall live right there. I've been in Ingham. It took me about 10 seconds to get through it. And it's an awesome place. So it's beautiful country.
Yeah, I like it. I grew up in the Midwest, but about 15, 16 years ago, after my wife got her degree in the Midwest, I just kind of said I think we should do mountains or beach, and she chose mountains. So here we are.
Hallelujah. I would have lost. I'd be living on a beach somewhere, I'm sure. I might have not even said beach. I would have probably left that choice out. It's like mountains or desert. That's what I would have gone for. Mountains or desert.
I'm happy with the choice for sure. Yeah. I wanted the public land and hunting. So
yeah, Idaho's such a awesome place to hunt. I mean, it's just public land everywhere. All the critters are there. People that I know that are in Idaho, you try to get them to come back here. It was tough. I almost had to bribe Kevin Hall to come back here for one of the largest hound events in the world. He's tough to get out of Idaho, and all my friends are that way that are in Idaho. It's like, why do I need to go anywhere else? I'm good.
just don't say that too loud. We don't want to get flooded here.
Oh, I hear you. As long as it stays in the southwest corner, you guys need to probably start building a wall down there, I'd say.
I would agree with that. Yes.
Yeah. Well, Nick, the reason that I was drawn to this is because I'm trying to figure out, after reading a couple articles that you've written, I almost want to say title this one, Lion Hunting is Not for the Faint of Heart, because the way you tell the story, the way you're very, very good writer and a very accomplished hunter. And I just want to dive into all of it. I don't even know where to start, Nick. So how old were you? About what age were you when you got to Idaho? How did you start lion hunting? Because you're a bird dog trainer too, correct?
Yeah. And all that started after I got to Idaho. So I'm about to turn 40 here. And I was 25, moved out to Idaho. My wife was in school. She kind of finished, and we found a job for her out here. I was an elementary school teacher at the time, and so it was pretty easy being a male elementary school teacher to get a job. But moved out here, and kind of I wanted to get a Brittany, and I got into kind of that world right after I got here. And then just kind of a weird turn of events, that kind of shaped a little bit of my trajectory here, at least in the hound world, is I got at 25, I was diagnosed with cancer, and went through kind of that process. And yeah, but I kind of got, kind of you get a little different view, and kind of wanted to do some things that I'd wanted to do, so I started looking into hound hunting for lions, and it was kind of funny. I kind of was under the misconception you needed like 15 dogs to do it, and kind of did some research, and it was like, oh, you can do this with one or two. And then I'm kind of like, well, I drive this 1989 Maxima. And so I can't really like drive mountain roads. So at the time. And so I kind of did some research. Can you hike into places and hunt? And kind of found this out, and then was able to acquire a puppy hound, and then a hound that had some experience, and went from there. And then on the bird dog side of things, I just trained mine, and with a local trainer, just kind of that I met as an acquaintance, and it was helping me. We became good friends. And then from there, I bought another Brittany and trained her, and then I started getting some of his clients that he couldn't keep up capacity wise. And kind of took off from there with the bird dog training.
What's the name of that kennel? I looked it up. I can't remember the name of your kennel though.
Cove Mountain Kennels.
Cove Mountain Kennels. Yeah. So you guys are doing professional bird dog training, hunting Africa, running you're the head zookeeper there as a principal at your local school, right?
Yes, sir.
That's funny because it's like, when I retired from state government, a friend of mine, he had already retired, and I asked him, I said, I was getting ready for it. And I was like, man, do you miss it? He's like, I miss the monkeys, but I don't miss the circus.
I think that's a good way to put it. Yeah. I'm in elementary education administration, and love the kids, love the staff I work for, and love, the families and parents I get to work with. But yeah, there's definitely some challenges, just like in any job where you work with the general public. You work with people that you may not see eye to eye with.
Yeah, it's like being a conservation officer was more about resolving people problems than it was protecting wildlife, because that's really what it boils down to. Every job is that way, though. I mean, it's people problems. I don't care if you're in sales, you're a general contractor building a house. You know how to build the house. The hard part's dealing with the customer or the people.
Yeah, I'd agree. And except with the game warden piece, all the people you're dealing with have guns, so that makes it a little bit more tense, I would imagine.
Oh, the ones that were packing the guns most of the time, you're clear that it's there and they're there. The most intense times came, when you were dealing with actual criminals, and then you're really on point. But anyway, I'll tell you what, man, the article you wrote that drew me in. I mean, there are so many facets to that article that just struck home. For one, it was very well written. We already covered that. But just the way you went through so many things in that, like the drive that we have as hunters, selecting hunting partners. You talked about that. And what was that article called on Field Ethos? I just had it up, but chasing dogs, chasing something. What was it called?
Chasing dogs, chasing cats.
Yeah, chasing dogs, chasing cats. What a great, that sounds like an oxymoron title for sure. It draws you in. But yeah, let's just, one of the parts that you put in there that we've talked about briefly on this podcast in the past. Let's start with this. Let's start with the way you laid out the drive that we have as hunters to go out there and do what we do. Because you guys tell us just a brief synopsis of the story. I don't want to take people away from going to and reading that article. They'd be cheating themselves by listening to the footnotes here if they don't go read this article. But you guys chose to walk through this area and just pick it up. I don't want to tell your story for you.
Yeah, I mean, it was a early December hunt, so we had some snow, but the tops of the mountains were not, just filled with feet of snow. So we knew we could hike a while, and so we just basically walked, kind of an entire mountain range and parked on each side, and we got going, cut a tom. The dogs treed that in a couple miles, and it had a female with it that it was breeding. My buddy ended up taking the tom kind of reluctantly. And then when it hit the ground, he was pretty excited about it. And then, I had two of my dogs and he had a puppy. And then we wanted to rerun the female, and she had kind of gone on a walkabout and ended up in some melted off stuff. And, she ended up in this really picturesque tree on this bare hillside. But we were getting some pictures and kind of trying to get the young dog excited. And then she jumped off on these tethered dogs, on my two tethered dogs. So there was kind of this ground fight, and I went to help and pulled the dogs and, away that were coupled together. And then the cat kind of came at me and swatted my boot. And it was kind of just trying to not get the dogs hurt or get hurt myself. And then we kept walking. And because we were kind of at that point where when he shot that tom, it was pretty early in the morning, and I'm like, should we finish the hike or go to breakfast? And we kind of both knew, being hunting partners, that you're going to keep going. You kind of have to, when you hunt with someone long enough, you don't have to feel that out. You just kind of know, it's
right. Opening
weekend, we're going to keep hunting. So, we just kind of kept hunting the whole day, basically till dark, and had, some other adventures, and, into the evening, just with we crossed a giant tom track that was like 45, 46 inch stride. And, if you want to check it out and read it, but yeah, it was just one of those packed days. And, where you end up at the truck real late, the kind that when you're doing it, they're not always that type 1 type of fun. But they're the kind that you think about, and talk about when you're with your hunting buddy. And I'm sure you've had some of those adventures yourself.
I'm telling you, anytime you can share adversity, that's where friendships are forged. When you can share and overcome adversity together. And so many times when we go out hunting, you never know what you're getting into. I mean, it's a good day. We hunted the Swan Valley. First year I hunted with Larry Anderson. I've had rougher walks to coons that I've treed here back here in Indiana than all except one of the lions. We treated like 7 lions, but there were other challenges. There were other things. There's deep snow, even a 200-yard hike off of the trail in those Swan Valley there in Montana was a challenge. So there was plenty of that. And, but I want to talk about, one of the things that, and I don't want to pick this article apart. I think the overview you gave was absolutely perfect. It piques people's interest, and it's like, man, I need to go read this. But one of the things that stuck out to me was the feeling that we have as hunters. You and your partner, hunting buddy there are looking up in this tree, and you're trying to make the decision of whether or not you're going to shoot this lion. And we do that. That's the story that the non-hunting public and the anti-hunting public, they mischaracterize us as hunters, and the non-hunting public doesn't understand it. Do you guys, is that something that you do all the time? When you walk to a lion tree, you're not walking there every time with the expectation of killing a lion, right?
Oh, absolutely. And that's, that particular hunt, it's kind of the first of the season. And, I think we treated like 19 the year before, and killed one. But yeah, I don't know. I don't take it as a light thing to shoot one, because you can't run that cat again, and no one else can run the cat again. And so, we're selective on that. And it was kind of one of those things where, we don't, I'm usually walking for tracks, right? So I'm not usually driving for tracks. I'm not using a snowmobile. And so, it's hard to, when we cut a tom with their giant circuits, like it's a little bit more rare than when I can just when you can just drive a snowmobile up every canyon, if I'm walking. And so we didn't treat, you don't see that many, but yeah, last year we had, we had a cat toward, in January of last season. And I remember it was me, and two of my friends, and we left at the truck, and I was like, does somebody have a gun? Like, just in case we, see some monster. Cause I hadn't even brought a gun, but yeah. And then of course we end up with this, we end up walking 600 yards and, treeing a giant kind of Boone and Crockett cat. And we were happy with it. But yeah, it kind of, there's, I typically have a gun on me more if I get in a situation where I'm, wanting to, defend the dogs, rather than just, kill a cat. But yeah, it's, I think a lot of hound hunters, especially, with these lions, and it's a limited amount of them, and we like running them more than killing them. Most of us do. And so, it's something there is a debate, each time. So,
yeah, there really is. And that's true for bear hunting. It's the only form of hunting where you can walk up and make a true informed decision and take everything into consideration of whether or not you're going to pull the trigger or not.
Yeah.
One of the things you brought up was, you can't rerun a dead cat. That's a big one.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's the ability to, to the best of your ability to sex and age, cats and bears and bobcats and all these animals. And, and yeah, you don't have that, on a herd of whatever that's 350 yards across the canyon moving through the timber and is going to be out of sight, but you get that luxury, with the hound hunting, which is a piece that that I think hound hunters should be, more proud of, more vocal about, of how selective, you can be.
Yeah. Yeah. There was a group that popped up on Facebook a couple of years ago, and I haven't seen it in a while, but it was called Tree and Free. It was just a spot for us to post pictures of game that we treed that we didn't intend to harvest. And even the folks over at GoWild, the social media platform for hunters. I don't know if you've ever heard of that or not, but it's a whole social media platform built for hunters. And through our work with GoWild, they put their own category in there for recording trophies, and they added hounds. And one of the categories was tree and free. So before you could put in there, it was for where were you? What were you hunting? What did you take? What gun did you use? How far? Well, GoWild, through the relationship we built with them, just decided that hey, tree and free is pretty valuable, and gave us the opportunity there to do it for sure.
Yeah, that's awesome to hear. That's and I hadn't heard of that platform, but yeah, that's and I think most hound hunters who've been doing it a while, I would say would embrace that piece of it. It's I think one of the problems in the hound hunting world, is just that smaller subsection, that have a little harder time, that have the itchy trigger finger, maybe perhaps a little more than is good for the populations. But I think overall, houndsmen, do a nice job of keeping that in check. At least the ones that I hunt with and know personally.
Yeah, I think most of the hunters that I know, most of the houndsmen I know, the whole, when the shot's fired, that's kind of the anticlimactic. Usually the people that get most wound up about pulling the trigger are people who aren't houndsmen that you're taking hunting.
Yes.
Bear hunters, lion hunters, that is their deal. That's what they came out there to do. And for us, it's kind of like, oh, well, now we got to pack it out. Now we got to skin it. Now we got to do this. Now, it'd been a lot easier just to leash them up and do what you did and go, or we've done so many times, and go find that next track and enjoy the rest of your day. Yeah.
Yeah. It's yes. The novelty of just catching them and taking a picture and walking away, still hasn't left me. And I think that's what keeps us coming.
And the thing that I really enjoyed getting that glimpse of your discussion you were having with your hunting buddy that day was, hey, you know what? This is a mature Tom. And if we're going to continue to hunt, we shouldn't be ashamed of killing stuff. I mean, that's what we do. And it's all part of science-based wildlife management. Those scientists set those quotas. They study these population models and say, please take this many off the landscape to help the elk population, mule deer, all the other things that go into wildlife management. So by all means, if you tree a nice Tom, he's going to have a big impact. He's already reproduced. He's already bred females. He's got kittens on the ground. He's done his job, and now it's time.
Yeah, I agree. And it's finding that, that balance and, equilibrium between, predator management and, and running and running, being able to run cats. And, you don't want to sway too hard one way or the other. And like you said, there's a balance piece, humans move into the landscape and, we have to manage predators. We've taken all the, a lot of the winter range for deer and elk, and so that kind of puts a imperative on, humans to be able to manage the predators, as well as the deer and elk, but finding balance and, and somehow finding some kind of harmony, with deer and elk hunters, of which I am both of those. But yeah, we don't want to eradicate things, no houndsman out there wants to do that, right. But finding that balance. And like you said, with a Tom like that's done its duty, so to speak. And, another Tom will move in.
Well, I can tell you that where you were at, I know it was early in the day, but skinning a lion, packing it out, and then deciding, hey, let's just go ahead and see if we can, who knows where the hounds will take us next. We'll just pack the lion out. That was like, these guys are hardcore.
That's nice of you. And I appreciate that. But, most of the time I feel like the mountain just kind of kicks my butt and, we're just at the mercy of the mountain. But, that was a long day. We put a lot of miles in and we had a little bit more flexibility just because we didn't have, super deep snow, which makes a giant difference, whether you're thigh deep or, boot deep. Right.
I can tell you right now, man, it would have been, we'll go back to the truck and if we we'll go to another ridge and let's get that dude back in the truck because I'm not packing that thing all the way through to your truck.
Well,
let's see if we cut it. Yeah. Let's see if we cut a track on the road on the way home to the Macho steak burrito.
We always talk about the super macho burritos. That's what I don't know if you're, when you're up there in the cold, you start craving hot food, and that's what we always fall on. It's the super macho burrito in the local town. And it's like a 16-inch thing, and it's just steaming hot. We're always talking about those. So
and you feel like you earned it too. I mean, you've been out there in the cold, you've been hiking your butt off, you've been hunting. Yeah, I'll work this off tomorrow.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, you're burning the calories.
That's right. That's right.
We like that hiking in, and it started as a necessity just because I didn't have a vehicle really that could go on mountain roads and stuff. But it just became a style that I like, of hiking into the roadless stuff where you can't drive. My buddy on that one, Chess Carbo, it was kind of funny. We were about 2 years ago. We treated a cat with a friend of mine from Missouri who drawn the hound permit, and he had a dog he wanted to run, and we treated a few females that weekend. But we ran one from the road, and my buddy Chess was like, "Hey, this is my 40th cat." And he'd only done a couple without me. And he goes, "This is my 40th cat. And this is the first one we've caught turning loose from the road." And,
no kidding.
And now we don't, I don't pass up a track on a road or anything. And I've run them from the road, but it was just kind of funny that the times that we had went together had just kind of fallen on, we didn't, we weren't cutting many from the roads.
I feel like a slob hunter now, Nick.
No, don't. No. Hey, last year I caught several from the roads, and several of them were at the mercy and generosity of hound hunting friends, where I'd stop and say hi, and they say, "Hey, you want to turn a dog in?" So no, I have no problem with that. But often we'll like to do a little targeted hike or a loop, into something, and but you get yourself into trouble once and again when the dogs go the wrong way.
So what are you doing this time of year? Well, I don't know what your snow's out there. It's pretty low everywhere, I think. But what do you normally do when you start getting deep snow that you can't hike? And you snowshoeing it or what?
Yeah. The deep snow makes it, you got to go a lot slower, obviously. And but sometimes the cats are down a little bit lower if the deer are really concentrated. Mm-hmm. Last year we had about 280% snowpack. And so it was a real freak year. A lot of the deer were low and they were all dying, winter kill. And then the cats were low. We started heavy snow this year, and then it's been really light. But yeah, we just different canyons and that are at different elevations and so forth. But, sometimes we just put on the snowshoes, and if we have a nice crust on the snow, you can go pretty fast.
Sure.
One night, 10-year-old, I had a daughter just turned 10, and we've been going out a lot the past few weekends and trying to get after it. But I'm trying to, pace her. I don't want her to end up in some death march and never want to go again.
You're a wise man. I pushed mine too hard, too early. I've told the story before, but I remember the day that my son he would coon hunt with me, but I remember the day that I broke him. And ever since that day, he will go occasionally, but it is not something that he thinks, "Oh, I think I want to go hunting with Dad." Nope. I remember the day I broke him, Nick.
Yeah, sorry to hear that.
Yeah, well, it's a funny story, other than the fact that I broke him from hound hunting. But man, those kids grew up with me doing that stuff. But it's just a matter of me being overzealous. So, I think it's a wise choice. I don't think we should baby them. I don't think kids should be, carried into a tree and you hold the gun for them, and they got to pay some dues up front, but and earn it, but that you can go overboard with it for sure.
Yeah, I agree. And with just explaining to my daughter, and I've got a daughter that's 13 that's gone on some hunts, and explaining to him like, hey, once we turn these dogs loose, we've got a commitment to the dogs, to be able to figure this out and get to the dogs. But yeah, it's hard because you don't know what that cat's going to do. And, luckily, I've been able, often I'll have a friend along, companion who kind of knows the ropes and can help. I'd like to think if I got in a terrible, tough situation and and my friend had to take, one of my kids back to the truck while I went and got the dogs, we could figure that out. But, finding that balance between, like you said, you don't want to, carry them in a backpack carrier into the tree. And what have they accomplished at that point? You've kind of lost the spirit of what it's about,
Right.
So
yeah, I think kids should learn how to, lead dogs and do their part. And my daughter, she walked to a lot of trees in her life, and she only shot one bear that whole time, and it was just right. It was right for her to do it at the time. And we were with a good group of guys, and she had paid her dues. And it's like, when they asked her, it's like, you want to shoot this bear? She looked at me and she's like, I don't know. I said, hey, go for it. This is your time. This is the time for you to do it. It seems like so many times back east here when you're bear hunting, you get a group of people at the tree. Somebody's got their brother-in-law from out of town that came into bear hunt. Somebody's got, this or whatever. And so this particular incident, it was just the right time. So go for it.
Yep. Heck yeah. Yeah, definitely. That's a great attitude for the kid to have.
Yeah. 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 I'm always impressed with those well-behaved kids, those kids that just, you don't have to tell them to lead dogs. You don't have to tell them to catch dogs at the tree and tie them back. They've been there. They've done that. And, every once in a while it's like, yep, they got to shoot too. And you don't feel bad about that one at all.
Nope. Those are good lessons. You teach them. I mean, elk hunting in the fall and camping, and it's kind of like, hey, you get to the campsite, and we're not going to mess around until we get the tents up and get everything set up, and ask everybody if they're, if they've got what they need, and then you can go hang out and play by the creek and throw rocks.
The one that, and this will be a little bit of a rant on my part, the one that I can't stand is when you got to talk them off of their iPad in the backseat of the truck, or stop texting their friends on their phone. And it's like, well, just shoot this bear. Just go ahead and shoot it. We'll help you pack it out. And as soon as you shoot it, they're standing back and they're texting on their phone, and they don't care. They don't care about it at all. And I'm just like, why am I skinning this bear, and why am I packing it out for this kid? They don't care.
Yep. Yeah. That's a legitimate rant. And we, yeah, for sure.
So how do you you hit on a key topic there, or a key point there that I want to go back to. You're talking about choosing hunting partners that you entrust your most valuable thing to, and that's your kids. And we've all had that brother-in-law that shows up. It's like, man, I want to go hunting. And you get 30 minutes in and they're ready to go back to the truck. So what qualifies as a good hunting partner? Because you identified Chess as, one of those guys that's there through thick and thin. You know what app I use on my phone more than any other app besides the podcast app to listen to this here podcast? I use OnX. OnX Maps is the most comprehensive mapping system for hunters on the market today. I use it all the time. When I was in New Mexico, I was looking at 40,000 acres of ranch that I needed to learn. I flip open OnX and just start studying the map. When I'm riding trails, I put the tracking app on. It helps me get around in strange country. I could mark water sources, food sources, bear sign, just all kinds of options within OnX. You need to check out OnX Maps by going to houndsmanxp.com. Click on the link on our sponsor page. You'll go right to OnX Maps, and when you check out, enter the code HXP20 and you will get 20% off of your order. Know where you stand with Onyx. The Houndsman XP podcast only endorses products that we would use ourselves, and I do use Elite Nutrition supplements. Elite Nutrition offers supplements for your horses, your mules, your dogs, and even you. These all-natural products work with your dog's natural immune system and its normal, natural body function, not to treat symptoms, but to fix problems. Stop pumping pharmaceutical toxins into yourself or your dogs and start using these all-natural products that work with the perfect system that God gave you. Go to tryelitenutrition.com and check out their products for wound care, prebiotic, probiotic, puppy stuff. It's all there. Parasite control. If you expect extreme performance, you need Elite Nutrition.
Yeah, and that's, it's a great question. And I think it's kind of it's like a case study. If you look at different, groups of guys and guys that hunt together, and you kind of are attracted to, like-mindedness. With Chess, it was just kind of, we became buddies, and he just, he could get around he's a younger guy, and he could get around, the mountains real well. And we hunted a lot together before we were, treeing a lot. And I think the first winter he went, it was just I remember being attacked by a swarm of bees in February. That's how warm it was. It was and we had to walk 4 or 5 miles to get to snow patches. I mean, it was so, but I mean, really just, that like-mindedness, but that doesn't mean that I wouldn't, that I don't, hunt with guys that maybe, have a different level of intensity, for other things. With the hound thing, it's just hard because it's just not something you can just walk away from once those dogs are out. If a guy gets tired elk hunting and wants to go back to the truck, that's fine. And then, I talked about another good friend of mine, and he's really tough guy, and the physical aspect's not a problem, but he just got, we caught a cat in a real low cedar tree, and I was taking pictures of it, and he was really worried that cat was just going to jump on my face, and I'm, trying to explain that that's not really, what happens. And, but it made him real uncomfortable, so just different reasons that with the cat hunting in particular, that you do have to be a little discerning so that you kind of have like-minded styles, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't, you don't want to sound like, I just wouldn't go hunting with anybody. But I think, the kind of the backcountry walk-in hunts where you're not just, walking to a tree that's a set amount, a certain distance away from the truck or the snowmobile that's known, it's a little bit, it can bring out different things in people,
Yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with being selective in hunting partners at all. I mean, think about all the responsibility that you're putting on that person. If you get in one of those rocky outcroppings and you twist a knee, or I don't know how many houndsmen that have died from heart attacks. I was coon hunting with a guy one time back here in Indiana that started having some kind of medical episode. And we were down way off the road. I got him back up to a cow pasture, drove through Weaver's electric fence, just drove my truck right through it. Couldn't find the gate. And I just I'll fix it later. Got him out there, took him to the hospital. But I mean, there is a certain level of obligation for us as hunters to be ready to handle situations like that, but we are putting that kind of responsibility on other people too.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not just going out and shooting something, there's other pieces to it when you're out in the wild, whether it's, a swamp hunting raccoons or a mountain hunting lions or, elk or whatever. This level of trust.
Yeah. Level of trust. That's right. This isn't a ride or die, buddy. We're asking to go pick up car parts at the AutoZone. It's got to be a little bit of a deeper commitment than that.
Yeah, and what I found, a lot with the lion hunting in particular is, I wasn't kind of prepared for this just as I got into hound hunting, but there's a lot of people that would love to go and shoot a lion, but there's not a lot of people that want to go day after day, weekend after weekend, and just go through the process of catching cats and letting cats go and making big hikes and things like that. And I've got, several friends that just like the process of it, even though they don't have their own hounds. And I'm lucky to have those friends to go with.
We got a buddy of ours. He just got his first hound this year. I don't know how many years he's been going to the mountain and tracking dogs, running the radio, catching dogs. He's got a Toyota truck. He's got a dog box. And I've seen guys like this all over the mountains. And, they just want to be a part of the process. And he just got his first hound this year. And, I think it ruined him because now I can't call him on the radio to head off my dogs because he's got his own dogs. So now we got to find a new guy that can fill that role. But it speaks to what you said. I heard a guy one time, he said, if you call me and tell me you want to go bear hunting, don't come thinking that you're automatically going to be the guy on the trigger. Show up ready to work, show up ready to put the time in, show up ready to do all the things that our buddy Clater has done for years. He shows up. He had his own GPS system. He had his own leashes. He had his own dog box. He had a Toyota truck. He had all the gear except the dog. And when Clater got a dog, it was like, yes, Clater's got a dog, and so you feel more than happy to involve him in all of that sort of stuff. And at times it's even better than me showing up to hunt with this group in Virginia, a few times a year, and I show up and I've got dogs. Clater's done a lot more. He's part of that pack, I'm just an interloper.
Yeah, I have a lot of respect for that, because he loves he loved the chase before he even got a dog, and
that's a beautiful way to put it.
Yeah. And, my buddy last year who, he was with me and Chess, my buddy Griffin, and he killed, this, just giant last year, and he texts me every Friday. Hey, we taking your girl out this weekend, and he's ready to rock and roll, and he knows there's nothing in it for him except the adventure and being a part of something like that. And so, you find those friends, you want to hold on to them for sure.
And you want to see it and you want to involve them. We've all hunted with those guys. It's like, man, I hope he doesn't call.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Nick, it's, what got you into writing? Because I've written articles for Full Cry, Bear Hunting Magazine, a few articles here and there for different publications. But when I read your article, this is definitely something that you were inspired to do. Usually when I'm writing, it's to meet a deadline, and I try to, but your writing abilities dwarf mine. So what compelled you to start writing?
Yeah, that's a good question. It goes way back. When I was growing up, I was like 8 or 9 years old, and a buddy of my dad's was the editor for a magazine, kind of a Midwest hunting and fishing one called Outdoor Guide. His name was Bobby Whitehead, super nice guy, but he had kind of asked me, hey, do you want to write some stuff kind of from a kid perspective, and as a kid in middle and kind of early high school, I was writing squirrel hunting and turkey hunting and frog gigging and vacation ocean fishing articles. And then I kind of fell away from it. The process wasn't that fun for me. At that point, kind of went through schooling, and then kind of got back into it about 8 or 9 years ago. I went on I actually wrote about my first lion, that I caught. I say that loosely because I got to turn a dog into a lion track that my friend had hunted hard for like 12 days to find. But point was, I wrote about that, and then found out, I really liked writing the dog stuff and kind of got more into it. Yeah. And I don't know. It was just kind of a process getting there. I enjoy the process, and I enjoy kind of, especially writing about dogs. You feel like you kind of honor the dogs and honor the game in it. And I don't know if you got that same sense when you're writing about your own dogs for those magazines.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. I think the most intriguing articles I read aren't about the individual. They're about the things that you talked about: honoring the hunt, honoring the dog, honoring the experience. When I read your articles, and the thing that drove me to contact you, I thought, man, this isn't just a guy going through the motions out there trying to stack up body counts or counting trees. I mean, he's taken the whole experience in and sharing it.
Thanks. Yeah. Thanks. And the thing I found, it was kind of, just writing about hound hunting is, I have so much respect for lions. First off, they were kind of the reason, I wanted to do the lion thing, and then I got into bears, and then did bobcats, and of course got my butt kicked a million times doing that. But the lions, I have so much respect for. They're not like a wolf. They don't hunt in a pack. They don't hibernate when the going gets tough for 5 months. But with all, I couldn't respect them more as a game animal. But then when you see a 35-pound hound put one of these 160, 175-pound toms up on its own, you start going, man, like this little dog here that was like licking my toddler's face like yesterday, has now like put this giant tom in a tree on its own and holding it there. Like this cat's scared of this little dog, and like the respect for the heart that's, the kind of that heart that a hound has is pretty unbelievable, almost unfathomable, as a fellow hunter to the hound, to be like, man, like I can go up these mountains and act like it's some big deal, but like this hound's got 10 times more hunt in it than I do.
I just watch. I even look at my small Yog Terrier and I think about the heart he's got and how many more steps he has to take than I do to get places, and yet he's always ready to go. And and they inspire, all my hounds inspire me to go places. And when I hear people say that it's easier, it's not fair. It's like, man, just like you capture so great in your articles, you capture that feeling. It's like, the hounds went that way. That choice has been made for us. We're going. We've got to go. There's not a choice to be made at that point. It's been made for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And then, I've hunted with friends before, we're out hiking, and, maybe I'd hunted previous days. The dogs are sore, kind of foot sore, kind of hobbling around, and like, are you sure they can, they're going to be able to do this? And I'm like, just like, if we find a track, like all of that disappears. Like they're not foot sore anymore. Like they just go. I mean, they still may be foot sore, but you can't tell, they still may be sore. They're not as fast as they were yesterday, but they snap out of it so quick.
The good ones do, for sure. The great hounds, they forget everything else. And I think the greatest houndsmen I've ever been around are the same way. You can take somebody that, my buddy Larry Anderson, he was like that. We could be dead beat tired. We could be thinking about going back to the cabin. We could be thinking about the super macho burrito, and all of a sudden, bang, it's on, and you just forget about all of it. And it's good to hunt with people like that, because sometimes you need that encouragement, and I try to be the encouragement, but sometimes, it's good to have somebody else there that's pulling you along. There was a book that Stephen Pressfield wrote. It's called Warrior Ethos. And he talks about that. He talks about the ethos of the warriors, how they didn't do it for themselves. They did it because they saw their brothers doing it, so it inspired them to do it too. And it's a brilliantly written book. Of course, Stephen Pressfield is a brilliant author, but that really spoke to my heart, and I dwell on that, or I draw on that at times when I saw that in the Marine Corps. I saw that when I was a conservation officer. You're going to launch this boat into this fast water situation because your buddy's getting ready to go and you don't want him to go alone. I think that's important as a good hunter to be there for your buddies.
Yeah, definitely. And then feel like the hound piece of it, even raises those stakes and the sense of responsibility that you have. It's not just for each other, but also making sure the hounds get back safely and, are accounted for.
That is a key piece. You're exactly right, man. Because there's several people, and I've hunted a lot by myself over the years. I think that guy that has got that level of dedication to his hounds, I think that's a guy that we can look at and say that's a houndsman. If you don't have that level of dedication, you're just a guy with a dog trying to chase a critter around. But a guy that's got that level of commitment, when nobody else is around, it's just him and his dogs. He's got that level of commitment to do whatever it takes to get to them. I think we can hold that guy up and call him a houndsman.
I agree.
Yeah. I got it. Okay. So let's shift gears here a little bit. You're doing a lot of bird dog training, with Cove Mountain Kennels there. And, I'm always intrigued by the bird dog trainers and dog behavior and the things that are transferable skills that we can take from the retriever world and use them with hounds, the things we can take from our pointing breeds and our flusher breeds and even our police working dogs and things like that. And how we bring all those things together to make us better houndsmen, better dog trainers, stuff like that. So what are some things that you've seen from the bird dog side that maybe you've brought over to implement with your own hounds, and then also vice versa?
Yeah. I mean, I work primarily with pointing dogs, and, a pointing dog next to a hound, they're just a totally different animal. The hound is, I think they're just closer to the wolves. They're more instinctive, less refined. They hard-headed may not be the right word. I mean, in the, the scientific piece you'd be looking at is how they, you have these people doing studies on dogs to see how many, how many times it takes a dog to kind of learn something, how many trials. Hounds don't do too hot on those. Bird dogs are usually in the top 20. But yeah, I mean, you've got the positive and negative reinforcement. And then something that I see carry over is, just trying to sit back. And these are things I learned along the way. And then from working with another trainer, but, this idea, what are you teaching the dog? So for instance, I don't, so here's an example, and it's kind of, specialized, but you think about, a dog on point on a bird, right? And, working with a trainer who kind of trained me, it was kind of like, hey, we don't verbally whoa a dog on point, right? So the whoa command stops the dog. You can teach him to stop a bird dog. And I'm kind of like, well, hey, when I was growing up and we'd hunt with people's pointers, they're always whoaing their dog, when the dog's on point. And, he said, well, then the dog's staying there because you're there. But what if, this methodology of training is to teach this dog that this bird sort of has this magical power that it can, I mean, hurt isn't the right word, but like that the bird holds the power to shock the dog. And so to speak, in that process, meaning that the dog learns to respect the bird, if you're doing it right. So that when that dog goes over a mountain and points at Chucker and you're not there to say, whoa, and coax it, it's still holding because it respects that bird in the way that you've trained it. That the bird is the one who kind of holds that power to the dog. Now, and how does that work in the hound? How does that look? Well, you think about things like danger, right? You've got a dog, God forbid, it's happened, a dog, young pup, chasing a deer, and you're worried about it going into a road. And, if you're a houndsman and you're yelling at the dog and giving it some electricity, to get it off the deer so it doesn't run in the road and it's not running a deer, it's associating that with you yelling at the dog, right? Mm-hmm. But what if you got to a point where you're just doing it and it looks at that deer and it's like, I don't like these deer. They shock me. And then it's learned, I don't like deer. the handler isn't the one who's kind of present. But I mean, that'd be a small example, but I don't know. It's always intriguing to me. And I feel like I learn something every time I take my dogs out.
The Houndsman XP Podcast Network is powered by Cajun Lights. All of your lighting needs for hunting can be taken care of at Cajun Lights. They have 3 models of cap lights. I'm going to run through them real quick. You've got the Rougarou, which is their high-end light. If you're a competition hunter and you got to find that coon up in a tree and it's all riding on finding that coon, you'll want the Rougarou on your head. Next is the Bayou. That's a pretty standard light, but it's got packed with features. It's got multiple colors. It's got walking lights. It's got the red, the green, the amber. It's all built in right into that light. And then you have one of my personal favorites, the Micro Gator. The Micro Gator is an ultra lightweight cap light. It's got all the features of a white light, red, green, and amber. I've used this light for everything from finding bear tracks early in the morning to coon hunting at night to working on plumbing in the house, changing tires on the side of the road. My truck doesn't leave the driveway without a Cajun light in it. And that light is the Micro Gator. Every Cajun light is durable, made from the highest quality components, and it is backed by Cajun's top-rated customer service. Check out Cajun Lights. You can go to our website at houndsmanxp.com. Go to our sponsors page, hit that link, it'll take you right to Cajun Lights. Check them out. They got a lot of stuff to offer over at Cajun Lights. You're exactly right. As trainers, when we insert our emotional state into it, it's natural for us to yell and scream, yell and whoa, or, try to recall them. And we're yelling at them and we're trying to teach them the same thing. When you teach a recall, you'll add a small stem at the right time to get them to recall. So what are you really teaching the dog? Are you teaching him not to run deer? Or are you teaching him a recall? I like what you're saying there. You know what he's doing. You're sitting here and you're watching him. You're hearing him burn it out of the country. He's not running the game you want like that. And so instead of verbalizing, because out of anger or something like that, we just give him the correction.
Yeah. So think of it from the dog's perspective. A dog's chasing a deer. Let's just say that it's a situation where you're within earshot, and you start yelling at the dog to come and you're shocking it. Like you said, you're looking at like, that's more of a recall situation and the deer's involved. Probably confusing for the dog too, but what does that do when that dog is, 3 miles away on a cold lion track and it sees a deer and starts running and you're not there to yell at it. Yeah. Right. So, but if that deer, if that dog is chasing that deer and you're watching it, and you've had this with a young pup and, you're watching it and like, you want to yell at the dog because you're upset and you're emotional. You don't want the dog to get hurt. You don't want the deer to get caught, whatever.
And your buddies are standing there. Your buddies are standing there. It's like that office quote. You're looking at the dog and you're like, why are you the way that you are? But if you keep your mouth shut and you start hitting that dog with increasing electricity, and the dog's head, all his mind is thinking about is that deer he's chasing. And now he's getting shocked. And if the dog starts looking at it like, this deer can hurt me, this deer I respect, and I can't chase this deer. I chase cats and I get to the tree and it's fun and the master pets me and everything's great. But when I chase these deer, my neck hurts. Right. I think the dog, they're associating that with the deer rather than you. And whether it's a porcupine or whatever, sure. Trash animal. And then recalls a whole nother piece. Like you talked about. Recalling a dog's one of the most important safety pieces you've got to have. But how many times have you? I've seen people where they're angry at the dog. Right, the dog didn't come back, and they finally get the dog back. And then they're kind of. Where are you going?
They're yelling at the dog, and it's like anytime a dog comes back to you that you've called, whether you are super mad and you've been mad at this dog for the last 4 hours, you just act like you just got to pet it up so that it's happy to see you. And otherwise, you can't blame a dog for not recalling when it gets screamed at when it gets back to the handler.
Dogs are so keen on reading body language. They know what you're thinking without you saying a word. We used to have a saying in police canine training, you know, all of your emotions are going to be translated right down that leash, right down that tracking lead. They're going to know exactly how you feel. And
oh my gosh. Yeah.
Yeah. So
well, think about the difference when you go to feed your dogs and when you go to get your dogs to go hunting. You could be wearing the same clothes. You could be walking the same time of day, but those dogs know as soon as they see you, like, we're going hunting today. Like, and they figure that from the body language that you're not even trying to project, you know?
That's right. You know, I can walk out to my barn 100 times today and the dogs are laying out there in the kennel and they're looking at me. But if I walk out to the barn, walk in my shop, bring the GPS collars out, start turning them on, man, everything here goes into, they know what's happening, you know. You're exactly right. Body language. And, you know, getting back to the recall thing, I used to be that guy, you know, they get back to you and you'd be frustrated and you scoop them up and you open the dog box door and you throw them in there and boy, you just showed him and he'll, you know, I feel better because I vented. That dog doesn't want to recall the next time. He's just out there hanging out, just thinking, I ain't going back there. I'm not doing that again. Last time I went back, that moron, he threw me in the dog box and was screaming and yelling and scruffing me up and all this stuff. So now, you know, I may be madder than a hornet, but I do my best to be the biggest hypocrite that dog's ever seen in its life. You know, 2 seconds ago, I was complaining to my buddies and cussing and ranting. And as soon as I see that dog, it's like, oh, buddy, here you are. Good job. Let's go. Get in the truck. You know, throw him a treat in there. You got him back.
Yep. Yeah. That's the, and it's hard to do, you know, and I've had them, you know, where the dog's coming back and they know you're upset with them. You know, and what I found, like, just something as simple as, like, they can read your body language, like you said, you know, something as simple as just like taking a knee when the dog's getting close. They kind of like, okay, like he really wants me back. He's happy to see me, you know, and kind of getting down at the level. But yeah, because they do such a good job of reading you and knowing what's going on. But yeah, and it's and as dog handlers, we always make mistakes and we're always learning. But that's that recall one. You know, if you start looking at it from the dog's perspective, you know, yeah, I mean, if you're a little kid and your mom's yelling at you to come in and then you come in and she's screaming at you, you don't want to come in the next time, you know? Yeah. Because you know you're going to get yelled. You kind of delay it out.
Everything is just behavior manipulation is all it is, you know? Now, if a dog comes slinking back in after he's run a deer, then I'm not going to be his buddy. You know, I'm not going to rough handle him or anything like that. I already gave him the correction he needed. In the truck and go. Yeah. Yep, but it's going to be like, get in the truck. You know, very deadpan, low key, and he's got his head hung and he loads up in the truck. But 15 seconds later, a dog knows what happened 15 seconds ago and what's going to happen 15 seconds from now. So 15 seconds later, it's a new day.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I used to, think, you know, the wife would say, oh, you're going hunting again tonight. And you'd have a little tiff there in the kitchen. It's like, well, I'm just going hunting, you know, and you get out there and before you know it, you're mad because I should have said this to her and I didn't marry her so she could tell me what to do and all this stuff. And then before you know it, you're taking it out on the dog. That's never a good thing either. So they absolutely can read everything. They're mind readers.
Yep. Yep. I would agree for sure. They know what's going on and they kind of give you these looks and they'll cock their head and I think they just have they can feed, they can see, you know, what's going on, you know, with you and kind of they can feed off that one way or another, you know.
Right. Yeah, for sure. What else? What have you seen going back to bird dogs that you've learned from hounds?
I mean, I see that one of the big trying to understand. So, okay, that's a good question. Okay, so looking at I've learned a lot both sides of it, but like, you know, I kind of, you know, you see these dogs coming back, you know, or being, you know, passed down from wolves basically. Right. And then breaking into, you know, breeds for based on, selective breeding for whatever the breeder was going for, and so, the hounds I think are less far removed, but, it's just interesting. Like when you study, for instance, just the prey response of a wolf, right? It's got these different steps of when it smells something, right? And then it stops for a second, and you'll see that with a hound, they'll have that flash like, oh man, this is a cat track. And then they go. But you look at like a pointing dog, and what selective breeders have done, they've accentuated that particular piece of the wolves, sort of prey cycle where it smells the scent cone of the animal, which happens to be a bird for the bird dogs, and it pauses for a split second, right? You see the little 8-week-old Brittany raise its leg and pause for a second, go in,
right.
And this is all coming back from that wolf piece, but with the selective breeding, they've accentuated the pause. Like this is what we're going for, right? Where it's just more, it's like a few steps down the road where the hounds, it's like, hey, we want you to chase animals, but not kill us like the wolves would, and so you kind of see this difference of kind of where they're at in that cycle. But yeah, I think another piece is if you can teach proper handling to a hound and just have a good handling hound that recalls well, that you can walk on a trail with, it's not going to bust out, unless you want it to. If you can do that with a hound, then you're going to do great with a bird dog, because bird dogs catch on to things so much quicker. And people know this who have labs and Brittany's and pointers or whatever, they catch on to things quicker. But if you can do basic obedience with a hound, then you're going to do really well with a bird dog that just picks stuff up quicker.
Yeah. Do you think you can put too much obedience in a hound?
I mean, that's a good question. So can you put too much in them? They're probably not as versatile in that aspect, in that respect as maybe like a lab. Okay. So what am I getting at? Like I had my buddy Chess, like his hound would fetch, his hound could, roll over and do all these kinds of different tricks and stuff. I mean, I just want recall and then the handling around, when I'm hiking, because that's obviously real important to me. I don't know that I don't know. I'm curious. I don't know that I've seen detrimental effects of that. I don't know. Have you experienced that where people maybe, teach them too much and then they can't do what you want them to do or?
No, it's just one of those, we try to address some of those, I think the old timers, always talked about don't pet that dog. It's a hunting dog type thing. But I saw that in bird dog guys too. But today's hunters, the more, I don't want to say younger guys, but I guess they are, today's generation are doing things. It's like you take, some people that I know, and they're in their 30s, and I see them, having this relationship with their hound, but they're still being effective. And so the reason I ask you that is because maybe to dispel some old wives' tales that you can't have a good handling hound and still have an effective, high performing hound. And probably the best example of that, to give you an idea, I don't know if you ever spent any time coon hunting when you're from Missouri, grew up in Missouri.
I did. I didn't coon hunt in Missouri, but maybe one or two times with someone, but I've coon hunted a little out, just a little.
I mean, I grew up from the time I was 13 with dogs that I expected to walk with a slack leash, but as far as any solid recall, any type of thing beyond that, I want them to load. I want them to walk, heel it with a slack leash, without yanking me. But overall, my experience was you open the dog box door, you wrestle with the hound, you try to get the snap in the D-ring on the collar. He jumps off the truck. He pulls your arm, almost pulls you over, pulls your arm out of socket. He drags you to where you kind of he drags you in a certain direction. You try to direct him towards where you want him to go, and then you unsnap him, and then at the tree you drag him back to the truck and hope they don't pull you off your feet. And I saw a lot different type of behavior when I started hunting with Western Houndsmen in dangerous landscape where you've got to be able to recall a hound. It was I really didn't get real serious about it until I saw how Calvin Redhouse handles his hounds. I saw these dogs across a canyon and he recalled them off of a tree. And I just stood there and I was like, I've been doing this for 30 years and I've been a moron the whole time. This is possible to do this. And he, they're under a lion tree and he's like, hey, let's go. That's enough. We're done. Or whatever he said. I can't remember. And boom, they just started peeling off the tree and coming back across that steep canyon and climbing back up the other side and walked out with us with a lion in the tree. And so I brought that home and started training all my coon hounds the same way. My bear dogs the same way. The dogs I lion hunt, they're all the same dogs. So I just taught them to handle.
Yeah. And and when I was in the bird dog piece, the bird dog world, when you chat with people, they have those questions a lot. Can it be a family dog and a hunter? And I think it is that piece, with some of the old timers that just kind of looked at it as one or the other. And I mean, it's my bird dogs and my hounds are my buddies, and once and again they're in the house, not much.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, and I also have 4 little kids that grew up with my hounds and my bird dogs, and they're buddies, and they'll kind of hang out and get licked in the face, and then the dog goes. But yeah, with the handling piece, I can't. I mean, we've all been there, where you're at a track and somebody opens the box and this crazy dog jumps out and takes the back track and can't be recalled, and it's just like,
yeah.
I don't know what you got to lose in trying to, get a little bit more control on the hound. And that's the piece, with the walking, I've had a good buddy of mine sold me a started hound, and he's like, she's really hot, but you're going to be perfect because you're going to, through your walking, you're going to be able to teach her, to kind of chill out. Because with the walking, you don't want to, I don't want to walk 10 miles with 3 dogs on a leash. Right. They got to be able to, hang out with me. And that doesn't mean they can't stick their nose in tracks and, and cast a little bit, depending on the situation. But if I'm walking a canyon that's got like week-old snow in it, and I'm looking at all of these different tracks, trying to find, a lion track that they might run over, they're walking single file behind me. But yeah, I mean, and part of that again is, that the way I hunt, you kind of need a little bit more control than if you're just driving up to a track with a dog box.
That's interesting. Because my hounds will go out and hunt in front of me like a bird dog, and then when they come across a track, then they'll you can tell if they start sin hooking and doing all that stuff, then they're getting ready to run something. And I'll cast mine up. But go ahead. No, that's what I was going to say. Go ahead.
So if we're walking in fresher snow, and I'm not really, I'm not worried about them running over something, and missing it. I'll let them cast around and go. And sometimes, if I keep them within 50 to 80 yards, depending on, I want to be able to see them, right? I don't want them to take a track the wrong way. That's one piece. But the other piece that I run into is, if you're hunting old snow, especially in deer wintering areas, it can be hard to figure out what's going on. And I don't want 30 dog tracks on top of everything in front of me if I'm trying to help figure that out. Now, again, and I've hunted with buddies in that situation. I have a good buddy, and it was like, I remember, we were walking in one of these canyons, and he's not a walking hunter. His hound was casting way up, and it hits a track, 300 yards away from us and starts going, and I'm like, dude, like, that's fine. There's a 50% chance it's going the right way. There's also a chance this thing's 3 days old. And we can't drive around to go pick up your hound. Like, we're kind of committed. So it just, you want to give the hounds the freedom to hunt and find stuff. But also, I don't want them taking a 3-day-old track the wrong way when I'm 5 miles into the backcountry. And so I do try to keep them, on those types of hunts, where I can,
Sure.
Have kind of control.
Everybody has got, we've said this before, every place has its own challenges. And as long as people have got a system that works for them,
Yeah.
I mean, absolutely. I remember we were bear hunting down in the White Mountains, and we got to the top of this big ridge, and we were going to, this was a thick, nasty cut over area. And so we're just going to, this is the first experience I ever had with this. Like we're just going to free cast dogs down this canyon. And I'm like, that's the game I'm talking about, because a typical coon hunt, I could walk across my bridge right here into my field, and I turn that dog loose, and it's his job to go find the track, shoot out there in the dark. He might do it at 100 yards. He might do it at a quarter of a mile, but he's going to find the track and he's going to tree it. But like you said, your situation, you can't just hop on the next county road and go pick up dogs or head dogs off. And, you could be hunting a young dog and they hit an elk track. They, and decide that's the day. That's the day I'm going to. Moose sure look fun to run. And, just too many variables there. So I always like talking to guys and hearing how they hunt and sharing those stories. And you're unique anyway, because, most of your hunting's done on foot, no machines, just ground pounding.
Yeah. And that's, when, unless it's fresh snow. If it's fresh snow, we hit the track and I make sure they're going the right way. Right. But when you've got old snow and, the first thing I do when I find a track in old snow is I tie my dogs up, and all my buddies know this, as soon as hey, there's a track, we tie them up. Of course the dogs go nuts because they know they're about to go, but I'm going to walk the track. I'm gonna go up. What's that?
Conditioned response.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it's good. I'm glad they're excited, but it might take me a while, because oftentimes I'm going to want to walk the track to where there's a bear. If I'm not sure, I'm going to walk it to where there's a bare hillside. I want to see if there's sun in it. I want to see what we're dealing with before I cast them into the backcountry. Where I physically cannot get a vehicle, to them. And so it becomes, if you're hunting in a place where you can zoom around in a snowmobile and get behind this mountain and around this mountain and up this next canyon, you turn loose on something a little older than you want to, it's not kind of the end of the world. But what happens? You can already have a tom walk 10 or 15 miles in a night on regular fresh snow, then what happens when you get, and what happens is I've turned on those tracks where you're like, I don't know, it might be a couple of days. We'll see what happens. And those can be some really long, scary days where you're worried about the dogs and they go out of reception and you're in foot and you're way back there. And so I tend to be kind of discerning, based on my own condition response from, from having bad experiences.
Yeah. Totally understand that. But yeah, the coon hunting stuff's really neat. And I've done just a little bit of it. But yeah, I wish I had hounds when I lived in Missouri, because there were a few farms that we had access to that I would love to take hounds back and run some raccoons. And my most memorable coon hunt was with a porcupine, and it was not a fun experience, but I learned a lot that night from the porcupine. I didn't, it drew me away from it for a little while. So yeah.
Because turns out that a dog that will bite a bear will definitely bite a porcupine.
I've pulled quills before. First time I experienced them was up in Michigan, up in the Manistee National Forest, and dogs come back with face full of porcupines. I'd never dealt with porcupines. It's like, what do we do? You start pulling porcupine quills and hope you get them all, because I always heard all the horror stories about breaking one off and it just keeps festering and everything. So yeah, that's a different experience for some. It was for me.
It was. And I was with a buddy who'd kind of gone through it before, but yeah, we ended up with this porcupine deal, and we got the dogs off of it. And like one or two of my dogs had, 7-8 quills in their noses. And then the other one, it was just everywhere. And,
Looked like it was wearing a porcupine.
Yeah, and I'm like, I grab one quill and pop it out. My buddy looks at me like I've got three eyes, and he's like, "You're gonna be here all night." He's got his Leatherman, he grabs 5 or 6, pulls them out. And we got it all done with. But yeah, they're scary with the ability of those things to kind of migrate, under the skin in different places. But
sure,
yeah, but that's it's almost gives me. I'm not a big fan of the porcupine.
Me neither. Yeah.
It turns out that when God makes an animal that is slow enough for a toddler to catch on the ground, he gives it something, whether it's a skunk or a porcupine, that is just kind of its way of saying, don't F with me, And
That's
so,
right. Yep, for sure. Well, Nick, I'll tell you what, man, I appreciate you coming on the podcast and sharing your story with us. We could talk another 3 hours for sure. But so where all can people find your work as a writer? Because I can't stress that enough, folks. If you haven't read any of Nick's stuff, make sure you pick one up. It'll inspire you.
Well, that's kind of it. Yeah. So I've got that, the one online in Field Ethos that was in their print magazine, but they've recently moved it to online. I do quite a bit of stories, probably more so than any other magazine for sporting classics. Really like that magazine. They really value, kind of the art of the narrative. I've had a few in Sports of Field as well. And I think, and these are, some have been, big game, African hunting, big game, Western big game, a lot of hound stuff. But I respect the heck out of magazines like Field Ethos, Sporting Classics, Sports of Field that will put, they'll put a hound magazine, they'll put a hound story in, and, and I've seen even, Sports of Field where, someone writes into the editor, just kind of the general BS you hear about hound hunting. It's not this, that, or the other. And they'll come out straight up and just say, no, we support this as a ethical, means of take. And I appreciate that support that they do that.
Absolutely. Have you ever thought about, starting a website, having a website, or is it possible for you to take those articles and post them on your website, or are they copyrighted or anything like that?
Yeah, good question. So the Sporting Classics, the Sporting Classics editor, he's let me, just put them on my Instagram page and send the link for kind of their online magazine link, to kind of, just for spreading some of the stuff.
Sure.
If anyone's, wanting to read more, or something, if they look me up on Instagram and shoot me a message, I'd be happy to just send them some stuff, that I'm allowed to. So, yeah.
I think, if you could figure out a way to throw up a GoDaddy site or something, just a one pager, it's like, with links to the Field Ethos and to Sports of Field and what was the other one? The classic. What was that called? Sporting Classics. They'll just drive traffic to their sites.
Yeah. No, that's a good idea. And I appreciate the kind words. That's you've written, and so you don't you don't the feedback isn't there, right? You don't, sometimes people look me up, hey, that's a pretty cool article or whatever. And but I appreciate the kind words. So that does mean a lot, that another houndsman hunter, at least for a moment was kind of brought back to the mountain, maybe.
Oh yeah, for sure. Well, Nick, thanks for your time, man. I really appreciate you agreeing to do this and telling your story from Idaho there.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Chris. I sure appreciate it. Enjoyed chatting with you. And next time you're in Income, you better stop by. We'll run something together.
I added your number and everything to my contacts. So next time I'm through that country, I'll look you up.
Right on. Thank you, sir.
All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning into this episode of the Houndsman XP podcast. We gave you all what's your Instagram handle, Nick, so people can find you?
It's just at Nick Muckerman.
Easy enough. When you got a name like Muckerman, you don't need to get fancy. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. So thanks for tuning into this episode of the Houndsman XP podcast. Make sure you're following our social media platforms. You can get all of the episodes. One thing I've got to remind everyone of is the new network, and I've done it myself, so I know you can find it. But after March 1st, the only place you're going to be able to find the Houndsman XP podcast, The Journey, Dogmen, All Mixed Up. What else we got going on there? We're adding another show that's coming up. I'm not going to let that out of the bag yet. But the only place you're going to be able to find that is on the Xtreme Performance Outdoor Network. So what you need to do is you need to go in your phone and you need to open up wherever you're listening to podcasts, and you can search it now, Xtreme Performance Outdoor Network, and you can start picking up the feed as they drop every week. And after March 1st, it's the only place you're going to be able to find it. So make sure you're doing that. Until next time, this is Fair Chase.